Welcome back, everybody, to episode 9 of Off the Rails with Tone and Jems. I am Jems. I'm with Tone, and with us today we have a very special guest, comedian, first runner-up on American Got Talent. I think that's what they call third place, right? Like a beauty pageant?
Think so. Yeah. I'm the third most talented person in America.
Right. The triple threat, Ryan Niemiller.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We are super pumped to have you. Got a lot of fun stuff to talk with you about, and
well, I'll be the judge of that. All right, let's get ahead of yourself.
I mean, I'm probably gonna be the third best person on this podcast, so we'll have something coming.
It might be fun for you, but we'll see how I feel about it.
Right? I mean, that's like most of my encounters with other people. No.
As long as you're having a good time, who cares? That's what's important here.
For sure. I know. So I know part of the reason why you came in, at least in my realm. I won't talk for Jems, but part of the reason why you came into my realm was through AGT and through Pat McAfee guys. Bringing us into. Thank God they brought you into our lives because you're absolutely hilarious. So we're very happy about that. I guess you're from Indiana, correct?
Correct. Yep. I grew up in a little town called DeMott in Northwest Indiana, up in the region, and then I've kind of moved around. I'm a starving artist, so I've been pretty nomadic. But I've mostly been based in Indiana up until about 6 months ago. I was actually in Indianapolis, where I had been for several years. So I'm a legit Indiana boy. It's always funny with stuff like AGT, where people will be like, "Oh, he says he's from Indiana, but he's probably lived in LA for 10 years." And then people would be like surprised to see me at Kroger just because I was actually still in Indiana during all that.
Wait, there's a Kroger in DeMott?
Not in DeMott. No. This is when I was still living in Indianapolis now. No, I think DeMott, we still have Tyson's. I think it's still Tyson's grocery.
That's why it's always weird how things are like different, but it's the same. You're like, when if you're in LA or you're in Indiana, you're like, there's like fries, but then it's really like Kroger, and you're like, it's the same thing, but you're like, why can't you do the same thing?
I still have a lot of trouble adjusting to it being Carl's Jr. instead
of
Hardee's.
Me too.
It weirds me out. I don't know why. And I don't even eat at either. I don't even like Hardee's that much. But in my head, I'm like, this is an outrage. It has to be Hardee's.
It's so funny because I live outside of like the major city here, so I live basically right between Colorado Springs and Denver.
Okay.
And so like it's kind of like out east, and it's definitely like kind of farm town. But we have a Carl's Jr. kind of close, and we've lived here for like 4 years. I've eaten there one time, and it's like I even said when I was going there, I was like, I'm going to Hardee's, and my wife was like, where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm in Carl's Jr. And I don't even go there. I'm like,
yeah. It's one of those like situations where like I'm weirdly passionate about something I don't actually care about.
Yeah.
I get so fired up about it. I'm like, you mother, I can't even believe you would do this. Well, you want to eat there? Oh God, no, that's disgusting. No.
So you're gonna do great on this podcast because that's exactly what our podcast is.
Perfect.
How long did you live in Indy before you moved out to LA?
This last kind of stint, because I've lived there in various parts of my life, but I was there for probably 6 years. I'd say 5-6 years this little run. So I was home based there for a while, especially when comedy was really starting to pick up for me.
I'd say Indiana kind of is a surprising base for a lot of comics.
It is. It's one of the nice. And this is going to be kind of my soft sell for anyone who wants to maybe get started. The Midwest is really nice for if you're going to be a road comic, especially because, in Indianapolis, I was within 8 hours of so many major markets that I could have worked. So you're not far from like Cincy, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Louisville, Nashville. Like there's so much comedy that's in there. LA is great. LA has its own perks, especially if you're trying to get TV and things like that. It's nice in that regard. But man, if you just want to work and make money doing, telling jokes about your wiener, that's the place to do it. It's the Midwest. It's so much, because like I couldn't do what I was doing as far as like building my brand and kind of building my act from LA just because you have to spend so much more money on plane tickets and travel and all that. You know, I told those stories on AGT about sleeping in my car, and that's what you could do if you're like a road dog, like I was doing. You know, you just, oh, I got an 8-hour drive. I'll make it 4 hours. I'll take a quick nap at a Walmart parking lot, keep going, get to the gig, and make it happen. That's kind of how it was built for me.
Were you opening for just random comics at that point, or were you headlining, or what were you doing when you were?
It was a
switching
combination of both. So I was headlining a lot of like what are called one-nighters, like a lot of, you know, like, oh, this smokehouse has a comedy night. You know, this hotel has a comedy night. I was doing a lot of that. I was headlining some smaller clubs, what I would affectionately call like C clubs. You know, they're not the Improv, but like they're comedy clubs. You know, and
Right.
they kind of specialize on, hey, the headliner gets paid $500 for the weekend, you know, kind of thing, and it's sort of like for up and comers, you know, people who aren't the big deal yet. And then I would open. I was featuring for a lot of people. You know, like Miss Pat used to take me around every now and then. Just like some friends like that, or just randomly, like the club would book me to be the middle, and whoever was there, I was there with. So it was a wide variety. Like you can't be too choosy at that point in your career. I was just trying to make money and build those relationships.
Miss Pat is hilarious.
Yeah, Miss Pat's hilarious.
Yeah. Miss Pat is a fantastic comic. She is also somebody that I am glad likes me. Because I mean, all the story, like she is legit. You know, she is an old school hood rat from Atlanta who used to sell drugs, and like she is not someone to mess with. She will whoop your ass if you piss her off. So she is someone that scares the hell out of me, but I love her because she likes me.
I was gonna say, have you seen the cabin, Burt Kreischer's Cabin? She's on an episode of that.
Oh, I have not seen that yet. No.
It's absolutely hilarious. I watched it with a few people. Like they were at the house and they were like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "This is Miss Pat." Like, this is Miss Pat.
Yeah. She is so unapologetically her. Like she is the example. And again, I say this lovingly because like I'm an old trailer park kid, and even though like I'm doing well now, there's still a lot of trailer park in me. You know, like Miss Pat is killing it. She is doing well. She lives in the suburbs. She's crushing it. But you can't take the hood out of somebody just because you left it. And that's why I like her. She's very authentic. She didn't let anything change her. She is, for better or worse, she is her.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I think like the one thing that I really really like appreciate about like most of the comics that I like, at least, and like I've met a few of them, so like I can vouch for some of them, but like the ones that I really like seem to be like super authentic, like, and like know who they are.
Yeah, and that's the best way. It's like one of the easiest ways to be able to connect with audiences. Like, obviously, there's some people who can just be silly or characters or whatever, and they can make that work too. But you know, that's the way. You know, audiences have a way of telling if you're bullshitting them or not. Like, if they think you're up there playing a part and then trying to pretend you're something you're not, they're probably not going to accept you. And for me, it's just so much easier to try to be as authentic to myself as possible, because trying to be someone else is a lot of work. Like I don't want to like have to, you know, I've just heard stories of certain comics, you know, someone like Larry the Cable Guy, who, you know, like, and this isn't even a commentary on his act or whatever, but like when he's out and about, he has to pretend to be Larry the Cable Guy 24/7. Like, and that has to be exhausting, no matter what the character is, you know, just having to pretend to be a person because you don't want to like accidentally screw up your brand or something. Just has to be so tiring. So I'd rather just be me. I'm too lazy to do the other part.
That Larry the Cable Guy point. I just listened to Ron Sexton on Todd McComas.
There's another person, you know, Donnie Baker. He has
right.
to, you know, it's a different
another Indiana comic. There's two I just named right there. But him like being on there as himself and saying he coaches high school baseball, it just blew my mind. I was like, Donnie Baker coaches baseball, because you don't think of these guys having like, I don't know, real lives.
Yeah. Ron's actually, he's a good friend of mine. He helped me out a ton, get into a lot of clubs before I got AGT. I would open for Donnie a lot of times, and it's one of those like strange things with people like that, because like like I don't like Donnie because it's just not my style of like comedy. Like I like if you actually was just Donnie all the time, I would not like him. You know, because Donnie's a very specific thing, you know, for a very specific group of people.
Flashback to the trailer park.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it reminds me too much of that. But Ron is like the sweetest dude in the world. Like, you know, it's like selflessly help get me into places, have me open for him. Just, you know, we would talk baseball and just like he's just a good dude as himself. And it's just you know, he doesn't do it as hardcore. He'll break character a little bit depending on what the situation is, but man, he's got to be when it's showtime. He's got to be Donnie. You know, it's just it's such a different thing, and kudos to him for it. This business is hard, so whatever you can figure out to make work, do it. I'm all for that, but just not for me. It's a little exhausting even thinking about doing it.
Well, like some of those things are so because I know like Larry the Cable Guy, it's so specific that like you always like I always wonder about those things. I'm like, where does like I've always forget his I can't remember his regular name, but it's like
Dan Whitney.
Dan, yeah. Dan. So it's like where does Dan stop and where does Larry start? You know what I mean? Like that's got to be like a weird like.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's like a little bit of that in there. You know, like I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. Yeah. And, you know, just the amount of wrestlers that I know, like part of them, like the really successful ones tend to live the character. Like it's like, you know, just them up to 11 or whatever. So like, you know, it is kind of interesting that like, you know, especially if you're like an old school guy and you have that mentality of just like, you kind of become that guy as well. You know, like it's for as much as it's a character, it's also you because it's you as the character. It's really weird worlds. Like people who are accountants don't have to deal with this shit.
Right. Well, it's like weird because I was thinking about that the other day because I was watching Cars with my son, and I was like, dude, this is a dude playing a dude who's playing another dude.
Yep.
And you're like,
that's weird.
That's got to be like such a. I mean, granted, like Mater and Larry the Cable Guy kind of the same vibe, but you're down the hole. You're down.
Yeah, and you could put it into even like other like aspects, you know, like someone like it's totally different, but it's similar. Like someone like RuPaul.
Yeah.
You know, like when RuPaul takes the makeup off and takes the dress, I'm sure just has like normal shit that bothers her and you know all that. So it's like it's just like entertainment is just one of those few things where you just gotta you have to compartmentalize a lot because like even for someone like me who deliberately is not a character and tries to be authentic as possible, you know, my at-home life here with my girlfriend and my dog is different than I am if you see me at the comedy club or catch me in the airport or whatever, you know, like it's just they're different parts of your life.
Yeah, it must be a little easier though when you have to like go from like maybe like a 5 to like a 7 instead of like a 0 to 100. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot easier for me to kind of turn on the charm a little bit if someone wants to picture at the airport, for instance.
Yeah.
Than it would be to go from like being me to Larry the Cable Guy, you know, or whatever. Like it's a very different world.
Yeah, I always wonder, like on those with like people like that, like if they like have like a mirror by like their front door, and when they walk out, they're like, "I am now," and then they're like they smile at themselves, and then they like walk out. You're like, okay, but I mean, speaking of that kind of sort of a little bit is I know like I was listening to you on another podcast, and you actually have a theater degree.
Yes,
and so like acting is something that you I think still want to do or you want to do more of.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do it. It was the reason I stopped doing theater with any kind of real regularity wasn't because I didn't like it. I just had other things I wanted to do more. It was more along those lines. I kind of jokingly say this, but like when I was doing theater, I wanted to tell my story more. I was tired of telling Shakespeare's story. You know, like when you do theater, you're doing other people's words. You know, you're doing other people's stuff. And with stand-up, it's more, you know, I write all my stuff. Like I'm authentic to me. If I want to talk about politics, I'll talk about politics. If I want to talk about religion, talk about that. If I want to talk about something stupid like, you know, like I love video games. If I want to just rant about that for no reason, I can do that. you're kind of more pigeonholed if you're like, I'm auditioning for this Shakespeare play, and that's what it is.
Definitely, yeah.
One of the things about moving to LA, though, like I'm not in LA proper, but like kind of moving here is, obviously 2020 has put a little hold on a lot of that. But I wanted to start being able to audition for, TV and movies and things like that, because it's as cool as AGT was. And if it's the only thing big that I ever do, I'll still have had a pretty good career. But in 5 years, I don't want to still be the guy from AGT. I want that to be a thing I did. But also, I'm in this movie. You've seen me on this show, whatever it might be.
Definitely.
For AGT, after you guys were done, did you guys all go perform in Vegas, or was that just, did Cody Lee go, or was there like a tour of you guys?
There was 5 acts that went to do the Vegas shows. So the way it works, without getting too much into how the sausage is made, basically, like if AGT wanted to do a tour, we would do the tour kind of thing. It's part of the deal. But for the Vegas shows, 5 of the acts got invited to do it. Like obviously Cody won. The Unbeatable was brought there.
Those dudes were incredible.
Yeah, my favorite act from the entire time. So I can tell so many stories about them. They became like my buddies. They became like, I was an honorary member essentially, just because from the judge cuts on, I was on every round with them.
Oh yeah,
we just happened to be paired on the same one. So I would always joke to Devanch, who was the basically the speaker for the group. I would always joke. I was like, okay, if I get eliminated, I'm joining your group, and you guys have to throw me like little dude.
That little dude flying around was awesome.
Yeah, kid's fearless. So they were on it. Detroit Youth Choir, who got first runner up.
Right.
They were on it, and then who else was on there? There was 5 acts, and I can't remember. I was one of them, which is sad. Oh, and then Tyler Butler Figueroa, the violinist, kid of violin. So we us 5 got to kind of go there and do it. It was obviously Cody's show, but like I was kind of like the de facto MC. I would open the show and then open the second act of it, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Essentially, they couldn't do a tour with us because my finals had too many kids, and I think like legally they can't make kids not go to school.
Yeah,
so that they can do a tour. So I think in the finals for there was only 3 adult acts, maybe 3.5. So I was one of them. Voices of Service was one of them. Cody was one of them. He's in his 20s. And then like 2 of the members of The Unbeatable. Everyone else was minors. And it's like, and they're super talented, but like I said, you can't make, Benicio Bryant not go to high school because you want to have him, do all these scores. So it just didn't work out.
Do you keep in touch? Are you friends with, did you make friends that are like lifelong friends now on the show, or?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things, like I kind of describe it as like summer camp a little bit, where it's like, it's such a rare thing that so few people get to do.
Right.
That like, and you really bond, so like I know that the show, when you watch it, they really kind of push the competitiveness of it. Like you want to win, you want to do, and you do, but like you spend so much time with these people and you're all going through the same stressors that like you really bond together. Like I say this jokingly sometimes during shows, and out of context this sounds weird, but like AGT is the only situation that I could think that it's appropriate that I became friends with 12-year-old girls, because like they're going through the exact same stuff you are, like it's all super stressful. So you'd be there and you're like, this is crazy, right? And they're like, fuck yeah, it is. And you're like, you're 12, don't say that.
That's gotta be a wild situation though. It's like, but it's so weird though, because I have a 12 and 13-year-old daughter and I have a 3-year-old little dude, but like it's so funny because like some of the stuff, like when their friends come over and like they're like watching something that's like that they think's retro, that you're like was actually around when like I was like their age, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this, and then like we'll be talking about it, and I'm like, why am I having a conversation with a 12-year-old?
Yeah,
like I can imagine that's like amplified by like 30 when it's not like friends of your kid or like something like that. You're like, what?
Yeah,
gotta be weird.
and even for that though, like even outside of that specific part, like even a lot of the other acts, like Dom Chambers, for instance, he's probably my best friend that I've made off the show. That we talk a lot. He was the beer magician.
Okay.
So he made the semifinals. But even meeting someone like him, like going into AGT, I don't know anything about magic. I was too busy working the road. It's not like I go to magic shows. Like I'm always working. So even kind of doing that and then kind of like getting to pick his brain about like how the business of magicians is like how it's similar to comedy and how it's different and like kind of how it works. And you kind of get to see how just different acts operate, like The Unbeatable. I don't know how to be in a big dance troupe. I don't know what the logistics of that is. And like one of the coolest things for me, like, and I tried to make sure that I just enjoyed as much of the experience as possible because it's real easy to get overwhelmed by the stress and magnitude of what it is. But I wanted to like sit there and at least just try to enjoy every moment. And, just because I was one of the talents doesn't mean I'm not a fan of stuff too. So for me, it was cool to get to like see really damn good singers sing, like being in the room. This is kind of how I try to describe it. When I first was watching kind of Cody Lee's performances, like either online or on television, I didn't quite get it. I was like, he's clearly very good and it's a cool story, but like, whatever, people sing.
Yeah.
And then when you're actually in the room, because like I was in the finals with them, when you're actually in the room and you like feel the energy, I kind of went, oh, that's why. Okay, got it. It's impressive. So, just as a fan of stuff, it was cool to be there.
That's real cool. Yeah.
Was there a judge more than others that you liked, or were they all pretty good?
The judges were all cool. Obviously my answer would be different than some other people because the judges liked me. Right. So it's hard for me to, there was one, I can't be like, well, this guy was a dick, clearly. They were all cool. Just as a comedian, it was a little extra special that Howie Mandel likes me.
Yeah.
And that we're kind of buddies, and he kind of went to bat for me on a lot of things. And like, he was really a strong supporter of mine. Obviously having any of them, they're all successful in their own way in their own different worlds, but having someone that knows how hard comedy actually is tell you you're good is a nice feeling because he's a legend in comedy. Like a lot of younger people probably only know him as the goofy judge from AGT, but in stand-up, the dude's a legend. He's a huge deal. So to have him kind of have my back was very cool.
That guy's got a like he's got one of those weird like I would watch a documentary on Howie Mandel for sure, like because he like when I think of Howie Mandel, I think of Bobby's World.
That's what I think of too.
Like that's my go-to, and then like obviously he was like the Deal or No Deal guy, and he had a bunch of other stuff. And
yeah, he's an interesting dude. I say this lovingly because like again, I like him, we're buddies, but like he's a weird dude. He definitely goes by his own,
He's a germaphobe too, and like you don't touch him, right?
Oh yeah, he was prepared for COVID since birth. He was so ahead of the game on that. He did let me hug him a couple times, which was nice. Like that was a very cool. That's how I knew he actually liked me.
Yeah.
It was so because like all that germaphobe stuff is very real. Like that's people will ask me like, oh, it's an act, right? It is not. So I did a joke in the finals about like people not wanting to shake my hand because they're afraid they're going to catch it. And even after we went off the air, he gave me a fist bump. He's like, I don't give a shit, man. I'm still not shaking that thing. And I went, touche, man.
So that actually leads me to the one question. We only ask every person one question every time. It's the same question. And Jems just like got weird, but like I think he didn't know where I was going. It's the only question that we've asked every single guest that we've had. Me and Jems are both left-handed. I like to ask every guest what hand you are. What are you, left or right-handed?
Okay. I am technically right-handed.
Okay.
But it's one of those things I can't tell if it's just because that's the side that I can actually like hold shit. Like,
yeah,
I don't have a gripper over here, so I don't know if I just learned how to do everything that way. So I think I'm right-handed, but like even like there's a lot of stuff that I do left-handed. Like when I played baseball, I bat left-handed. When I like mini golf or things like that, it's left-handed. I actually have. It's like my family has a really weird dynamic because like two lefties, like it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It's
And we're both Lions fans, which is kind of weird.
That's
Like,
even more
well,
rare.
that I didn't realize that those existed. Not left-handers, like Lions fans. I didn't know that was still a thing. I'm a Dolphins fan, so it's not like I've been riding this wave of success over the last 30 years of my life. But
Maybe not a Bears fan, being from the region.
oh no, like honestly, the reason I became a Dolphins fan was I was like being a rebellious 8-year-old because my dad was a huge Bears fan, and I was like, "Screw you, Dad! I'm gonna like a team that's far away." And the Dan Marino was really good on Tecmo Super Bowl, so that's why I chose the Dolphins.
Jems is a rebellious Lions fan. His family's all Packers fans. So
yeah. I'm just saying I know your guys' struggle. It's not quite the same story, but it's been similar. But like going back to the left-handed thing, it's weird because like I'm no-handed basically. I have two left-handed brothers.
nice.
And I have a right-handed sister, so apparently my sister's the freak of my family. Like she's the gross one here.
Oh, that's hilarious. So speaking of one of your brothers, one of your brothers is sort of semi-famous, sort of as well.
Yeah. He's JV famous.
Yeah,
is what I would say. Up until 2 years ago, he was the most famous of the Niemillers, which was very depressing because I was actively trying to be famous. So my brother is a herpetologist, so he's a doctor of evolutionary biology. He's a smart dude. And he's he's had a bunch of like books and papers and stuff in his field. He's really well known. Like he's someone that's like well known there. But he kind of had a little bit of viral success a few years ago because he found a fish that looked like a dick. Like that was the thing. He found this little cave fish, this little pink, veiny looking fish. And people just thought it was funny, and it got spread around everywhere. And it was so depressing for me because it was like, it's cool for him. Like in a vacuum, it's cool that he did this thing. He found a species. Like that's neat. But like when you were actively trying to be famous and failing at it, and then he goes into a cave once and finds a fucking dick fish, and he's my mom's favorite. Like it was very depressing for a while.
So I was gonna say that they had to lead to some good content though. It had to like lead to I mean, you're telling dick jokes. He's found a dick fish. I mean, there's.
Oh yeah. It was one of those things too that like because like you're like I mean siblings, no matter what level of success that you get in whatever the field is, they're always going to taunt you because they don't care. They're proud of you, but they don't care. They don't see you as that. So like. It was so irritating for so long because my brother, every time like a new website or like the video of him finding the fish like got more views or whatever, he'd be like, "Oh, look at that! That's 1 million views, funny boy. Have you ever gotten 1 million views?" Like he's just like taunting me like blatantly. So when I finally got AGT, I could be like, "Suck!" I made him call me TV's Ryan Niemiller for a while. I wouldn't answer him unless he referred to me as that. So it's cool that I finally was able to get the better of him.
That's wild that like your brothers obviously, but you both came out of the same trailer park in DeMott, Indiana. Is there a sign there that says like home of or birthplace of the Niemiller brothers?
There should be. I say this jokingly, a little tongue in cheek, so I don't want this to sound like I'm being like cocky or anything, because like I'm not that dude. But like I will tell you, it's weird to be the biggest thing that's come out of your hometown, because my hometown's not big. It's not like and we've had a couple. We had a guy that was like Olympic bobsledder, and a guy that had like a cup of coffee on practice squads in the NFL. Like we've had some people that have done some cool stuff. Like in the grand scheme of things, that's impressive. People don't get to do that. But like to be like the most prevalent person from my hometown in at least the last 50, 60 years is such a weird feeling. Because like my hometown, like we threw a party when we got our first stoplight. Like that's the kind of place we are. So to like do something on that kind of scale, like AGT it's a big deal. It's a big program. So to kind of come from that, living in a trailer park, literally not owning a bed until I was in college, to kind of go from that in that area to what I did is a very cool feeling. And it's nice to kind of have people from your hometown be like, hell yeah, finally something that's not a meth arrest that's in the news for our hometown.
That was always my joke about going to Purdue. Like if we from my house to Purdue, you go through all these little meth watch communities.
Yep, basically. Yeah. My hometown was like most known. It's where the last truck stops before you get to Chicago are. So like if you need to stop for gas or whatever, it's like a nice, easy place to do it. There's a nice Arby's there if you're really feeling frisky.
You're like it's always weird when like those are like the towns because like where I'm at because I'm a little bit outside of the city. Like I work for a company where I deliver stuff, and like I'll drive to towns and I'll be like, there is nothing in this town. The best known thing in this town is probably this convenience store, and it's only known because it's the last one for like 50 miles. So literally, your town is basically just known for like this is where I have to like piss.
Yeah, essentially. for the most part, yeah. It's like, oh, I better stop now before we get to Chicago. Yeah, and that's like an interesting thing, and I sometimes have trouble like because my girlfriend has grown up in Southern California, and small towns in Southern California are still like the town that we live in now is like 120,000 people. And it's pretty small by standards here. That would be like the second biggest city in Indiana, you know? So it's like the perspective of that. Like, so like she sometimes has trouble wrapping around the fact that like, I mean, you've been to Demont, Jems, like, you know, it's not big. And
I think driven through it.
I mean, I think the town I live in has less than 1,000 people. So like, it's just farmland.
Yeah, that's basically all it is. So it's like, so sometimes like just for perspective, we kind of have to like discuss to make sure we're on the same page. Because if we're talking small towns back home versus small towns here, those are very different conversations.
Well, California to Indiana is so wild to me because my best friend's soon gonna be engaged at some point here to a woman from California, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, my parents' house is like $2 million," and I was like, "What does it look like?" And she's like, "Oh, your house here is much nicer than theirs." I'm like,
"Yeah,
well, if I could find a way to move this house to California, I would just be rich, right?" She's like,
pretty much,
essentially.
Yeah. You're paying for the location more than anything, because we're kind of running into that now. We've been in the early stages of house hunting for a few months here, and the housing market in most places is just crazy right now. People who have money are just investing in stuff right now because it's so like even here, like a modest house, that kind of like a starter house, quote unquote, is like $600,000 to $700,000, and like my brain is still wrapped into the mentality of like, oh yeah, I could probably buy Indianapolis for that.
Yeah,
you know, like I could own the governor's mansion for around that. So it's just different worlds. It's just different. You know, like you make a little more money here, standard, just to kind of, or no one would live here at all. You know, my girlfriend's an elementary school teacher, and if they don't pay them a little more here, no one would ever do that job. It just wouldn't happen, you know. So it's definitely wild. There's still a lot of sticker shock when I look at things like that, and I know it's normal for out here, but like, man, I'm used to, you know, you could buy a really nice house for $150,000 in a lot of parts of Indiana and it not be a shithole, you know, like it's actually a nice place that you can make things happen. It's just it's different.
I'm just processing in my head right now. If I bought a $600,000 house in my town, how awesome it would be.
That's a crazy thing. So I was gonna say one of the things, because we just recently obviously started an Instagram page for this podcast, and one of the sites that just popped up, or one of the profiles was like, it was like this like it was like cheap houses, cheap abandoned houses or something like that. So it's like, and I was like, I get intrigued by that stuff. It's kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It's like something I have like too much amount of care for, or something I don't give a fuck about, basically.
Sure.
And like, but every now and then I'll be like scrolling through, just checking stuff, and I'll be like, holy shit, and this will be like $50,000 house. I'm like, that thing's like 7,000 square feet, and it's like, but it's in the middle of fucking Wyoming or something. You're like, oh yeah.
I'll tell you though, it's we there's a little disconnect on it now, but like, man, in a dream world, like one of the main reasons I'm living out in Southern California, obviously it's good for career under normal times. But like my girlfriend's from here. She works for the state, essentially. It doesn't make financial sense for her to leave. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm cool. I can do my job from literally anywhere. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But like in a perfect world, I would not have left Indiana. And I know that sounds like pandering to like that, but like I'm a small town guy, and I don't necessarily want to live on the farm. Like that's not who I am either. But like living just outside of Indianapolis where I was living was great. Because for me, it's close enough to a big city where you can do stuff. If you want to watch concerts, if you want to see pro sports, if you want to, it's close to an airport so you can get places. But like it's also kind of small enough where I don't feel overwhelmed. LA overwhelms the hell out of me. Man, if you want to like see me freak out, make me try to parallel park in LA. I will lose my mind. So it's like for me in a perfect world, I would say somewhere like the Midwest, but hey, there's still positivity everywhere you go. So I'm making the best of it. I'm enjoying it out here.
We're sort of Midwest podcast. I mean, Jems obviously still lives in Indiana. I'm from Michigan originally. Like my dad was just military, so we moved a lot. And then, ironically enough, I met my wife in Nebraska when we were 12. So like, I mean, like small town, just Midwest. She has a ton of family in Iowa too. So it's like we go up through there, and we absolutely love it. Like so, it's like I'd love to move back more Midwest. I mean, Colorado's not too far, but yeah, I love the Midwest.
Yeah, it's not. It's just more here, and I think a lot of people just what you know, and I'm 38, so it's like I had enough experience living there that I'm just like that's where I'm comfortable. I've never liked cities. It's my with my job, the way I always kind of describe it, like I love LA to work. Like LA is a lot of fun when I have a plane ticket home, so I know exactly what day I'm leaving. Then I can have a great time. Trying to live in that is just way more stressful for me. Like it's a big part of my like kind of thought on how to make myself happy is like I love my job and I love what I do, but it can be very chaotic. Like the entertainment business is weird, and all the traveling I do, and like all the big personalities I got to deal with, and there's just a lot to it. That on my off time, I want to be comfortable, and I'm not going to be comfortable like in New York or in LA proper. Like I want to have a little bit of land and just build my big arcade and kind of just get to have a few close friends that I hang out with. The hustle and bustle is not what I like for my like off time.
Definitely.
So I know you're a big gamer. Do you have like arcade games too, or is it all like gaming systems and stuff?
It's all gaming systems right now. More of that is just it's a combination of just not having the space yet. We're in a 900 square foot apartment right now. It's just kind of the nature of what we have set up while we're house hunting. And also, in the grand scheme of my life, I've had money for about 12 minutes. So the arcade systems are cool. I would love to have a few of them, in my dream. But like to find those in either really good condition or have someone, because I don't have the skill set to actually like refurbish one, they're going to run you a couple grand each, at least. So it's like I would love to have them. They're very cool, but financially and space wise, it's a little tricky right now.
Walmart has like those mini versions. They're not like super.
I see the mini ones all the time.
Yeah, they're
$2.99 or something.
Yeah, they're something like that. They're pretty cool for what they are. They're not a priority at the moment. I'm kind of a completionist collector, so I have something like 2,500 games right now for 26 systems.
Nice.
It's what I would do on the road. Like obviously this year has been a little weird for it, but like I don't drink, I don't party, I'm not going to strip clubs. It's just not who I am as a human. So for me, like on the road, I'd be in these weird cities that I don't know anybody. Like nothing against Tulsa, but I don't know anyone in Tulsa. I don't know what to do there, So I started just going to like little mom pop brick and mortar video game shops, and we just find some cool stuff, and I find all these things at different places, and it just like I love the hunt. Like I love playing, obviously, but the hunt, it gives me something to focus on other than being homesick.
It's fun. It's funny because I heard you say that on like another podcast. You like I like to make lists and like check them off or whatever. Like, and so like I used to be real big into like sports cards. Like definitely as a kid. My dad still like my dad collects like I mean, he was 30 years military, and then like he makes a pretty good pay doing the same job just in the government sector, and he literally collects like rookie cards of like the cards he wanted when he was kids, basically. Like, he's got like Roberto Clemente and all the like big players, like rookie cards and stuff. He'll search them out, and it's really cool. But like, I remember I was just like, I would find like these, like when jersey cards became like a thing. Like we lived in a minor league town. But all military towns are basically minor league towns. I don't know why they always have a minor league team, but
no idea. But
it's kind of strange. But so like I found like this like futures game. Like there was 26 of them, and I made sure I collected them on eBay and like all that stuff. And then I actually went and got them all signed, like because
nice.
they were all like the minor league players. So I was like, I'm the only person in the world that had that. Like it's like this weird like. So I understand that feeling for sure, of like collecting. Is there like a time where like you've been like on the road and you were like you walked into some place and you were like, oh, like do you typically find like 1 or 2 games, or like or you're just like, oh man, I have like there's like 70 games here that like
it could depend. That's kind of part of the fun of the hunt for me. Is sometimes like there's a cool store. It's called 8-Bit. It's down in just a little bit outside of Naples, Florida. So it's like so when I go down there. Last time I was down in Florida a couple months ago, I actually made a special trip. I drove about an hour out of the way to go there again, just to make sure. That he always has really cool stuff. He's really good at finding, deals and getting stuff. So there, I can easily drop, a few $100s pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
Some places you go to and you're like, okay, I'm going to put $8 into a couple of common NES games I don't have. So they're not all created equal, basically, is what it is. So, and there's also been times too, I've gone to stores and they've had like Holy Grail games that like I've never seen in the wild before, but I just can't justify spending $2,000 on one video game yet. I'm just not at that part in my life.
Yeah.
It's like the other thing, like the thing, in this year notwithstanding, because obviously we've all been a little underemployed this year, I think, for the most part. But I'm really nervous. I didn't want to become a guy who like, I was a struggling artist and barely making it by for years. And then after AGT, I was finally starting to make some actual money. I didn't want to be the dude who immediately like buys a $50,000 car and like, all this dumb shit. Because obviously this year has shown how quickly that can change,
for sure.
of no fault of your own. So like when people will ask me like, what's the coolest thing you've done with your money so far now that you're making a little money? I paid off my car and paid off my student loan. That's the sexy thing I've done so far with my and I'm glad I did it too. I'm at least at zero. Debt zero, which is in this country is pretty crazy.
That's the thing I tell my kids, because I mentioned I have a 12 and 13-year-old. They're like, oh, like, Dad, can we get this? Dad, can we get that? And I'm like, listen, you could buy that, but we could also save that money, and then you could also, this is where that would go, and like you try to explain the economics to them. I'm like, just don't put yourself in a hole. Like you have so much more freedom if you don't put yourself in a hole. Like
but because like I because I've been like careful, I can buy most of the video games that if I see a good deal on something, I can just casually buy it. In a perfect world, like if we were able to go to live sports, like I want to go to like every baseball stadium. I'm in a position where if I want to buy my girlfriend and I tickets to a baseball game, I can do that without having to plan it months in advance, because I've also made the steps though to make sure we're saving for the house, and I put stuff into these investments, and it's one of those things that like I made so many mistakes early. I understand that I'm fortunate because like getting on AGT let me pay off my student loans. I know not everyone has that, that's not everyone else's plan, because I kind of figured out a little too late how to be financially responsible. That's why, not to get like too political or crazy on it, but like, that's why I'm all for forgiving student loans, because student loans, like I know people, like a lot of people have busted their asses and paid theirs off, and that's admirable. But student loans are so predatory. Like, go back in your brain to when you were 18.
So
you were probably a dumbass just like I was. You shouldn't be making $100,000 loan decisions.
I have the worst. I have the other side of that. I had 18 Division I scholarship offers. I went to school on a scholarship, hurt my arm, and then left after a year and a half. And my school's paid for it. So
yeah,
that's a stupid ass decision because I was 19 and a half.
exactly. And that's what you do. You don't make that. You don't know yet. Like I mean, like I'm 38 and I still don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. To a certain extent. How are you going to expect an 18-year-old to do that shit?
Yeah, it's
I
wild.
also think credit shouldn't count until after you're like, I don't know, 24 or something. Like anything you do before that should just be like, that's gone. That didn't count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the wild thing about student loans, though, is from what I heard, so I heard this on a podcast. Student loans are like the only thing that, like, if you even declare bankruptcy, it doesn't wipe off.
Still there. Yeah.
Which is wild.
It's so predatory. Like it's ridiculous. And like I think there is something to be said about like, if you make an agreement, you should honor it. But like the agreement should also be, on both ends be gotten into with good faith, like it shouldn't be, how many of us were told like I enjoyed my time in college. Like I met some of my best friends in the world. I did learn skills that helped me with stand-up comedy. Like it's not useless, but I could be doing what I was doing right now without ever going to college. But it was so like hammered into our heads. Like you have to, if you don't go to college, you're going to be homeless. You'll never amount to anything. And it's like you have all this outside pressure. And when you're 18 and stupid, it's a lot of stuff too. Like, I don't want to, sound like this is derogatory against the military, but a lot of early military is pretty, it's pretty predatory too, to get people to enlist. Like you're not always old enough at 18 to like fully understand the actual scope of what you're getting into. We expect 18-year-olds to be adults, and be treated in certain ways. And you're not always ready for that. I didn't really have a grasp on what I was doing until I was probably 30.
Oh, for sure. I think that's definitely a thing. The older I get, because I'm just a little bit younger. I'm 37, and so like the older I get, the more I'm like, man, like I like. And we moved a lot because my dad was military. So like I remember like these weird milestones of like we lived in this city. So like I remember like my perception of my parents, and like my dad was in the military. So I was like, I think of myself, I'm like, man, when my dad was 37, I thought he was like 60.
Yeah. Like, dude, that is old as shit. I remember when 30 was old as shit, man.
Yeah. And so it's weird because I have all this like weird I'm like, man, and then I think, and I'm like, oh yeah, my parents didn't know what the fuck they were doing when I thought they like.
I don't know what I'm doing. Hell, if they did,
they didn't even have the internet. What the fuck? Yeah, it's wild though, and so I guess I did. It's one question that I always find interesting with people like our age, and like we just had Jason Patton on. I don't know if you know who he is. He does Fire Department Chronicles. It's pretty viral. He's kind of, it's basically based in like humor, but like we actually did a stand-up comedy draft with him. But basically like he makes these like funny like videos that go viral basically of like what the firehouse is like basically. Like and he's similar age, and we were talking about how like we are old enough to remember like not having the internet, not having like a phone that was basically a computer in our hand and could do everything. And like, is there like, when you started comedy to like now, how has like kind of like technology and all that kind of stuff changed like the name of the game, I guess, for you?
One of the biggest things, because I started in 06.
Okay.
So internet obviously existed. I was kind of in with the MySpace kind of time.
Gotcha.
That's where like I guess one of the biggest things that has changed is just like I wasn't at the very beginning of it, but just like how kind of much the world has shrank in a way. 20 years ago, I would have never got something like AGT from Indiana.
Yeah.
Like it just, no one would have ever seen you. You just wouldn't have been seen. So one of the biggest changes, and I know a lot of comics have very strong opinions on, like YouTube stars and Instagram stars, but like that's a viable means of success in comedy now. You know, you talk about doing those viral videos and stuff, like no matter what it might be, that didn't exist as a career path in entertainment. You know, even as recent as 15 years ago, it wasn't as prevalent. You know, you had a couple of people like, Dane Cook was kind of the first one to crack the code of MySpace and make that like a viable. But before, you just had to grind and hope you got to showcase to get on the Tonight Show or something like that. You know, that was kind of the way you did it. Now, you can become a huge star just like we talked earlier. My buddy Brent Terhune, who's a great comic as well. Like he's a longtime stand-up comic.
Yeah,
he was able to start doing little fake MAGA rant videos from his backyard, in Indianapolis, and the dude gets millions of views on those videos and like blew up. That's the thing that's like the biggest thing is just how accessible the world is.
Yeah,
because I have fans in Australia, in Asia, in Europe. I have these people that can see what I do so much easier now and interact with me in real time. That's probably been the coolest thing about it, I think.
Definitely. Jems did. Oh, I thought Jems was about to say something.
No, sorry. I think Claire's coming to tell me goodnight. So
okay. Gotcha. No, well, I was gonna say because that's something that's always intrigues me about about the change of like it's become so much more of a do-it-yourself kind of thing. Like, so I toured as a musician a little bit, and like that was how we kind of handled things. We just were like, well, let's make connections, let's go out. We'll drive from Virginia to Pennsylvania, and we have a show there, and then we meet 5 bands, and then now that band might be from like Indiana. Now we have a connect in Indiana, and it's like you figure out this network of like people, and you that's how you sustain stuff. Now it's like you can put up like one video, and it's like now. I mean, I know it's usually more than one video, but like you can have one thing go crazy, and you're like, oh yeah, all of a sudden just like, hey, like now I have like this dude who's like from Singapore, like was like, hey, come play the show. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild too. Like, even when I first started comedy, and obviously I wasn't in a position where I was selling anyone tickets anyway.
Yeah.
But like the original pressure was just like, get as many shows, work on your craft, do that. Now, like the pressure is, hey, we need more content for your Instagram. We need to start getting your YouTube up. Like it's all about the content of that. It's not. There's the old Mitch Hedberg joke where he talks about like, oh, cool, you do comedy. Can you write a script? Can you do that? Like that's sort of how things have turned now. It's like, okay, you're obviously a really great stand-up comic. Can we get a couple 2-minute videos for your Facebook that we can maybe make go viral? Can we? It's that's become such a huge focus. Like having strong social media numbers can get you booked in places. That's why these YouTube stars who have never done a stand-up show in their life can headline comedy clubs, because they have 3 million subscribers who will come buy tickets to watch them be bad at stand-up comedy, because it's not
they
the
won't
same.
know the difference, basically.
Yeah,
it's crazy too, because like I know like having some friends in the comedy world, it's like you see it and they're like, oh, so and so is coming to town, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, and then like there's like so and so's coming to town. It's like maybe a known comedian, but it's like a smaller headliner, and they're like, everyone's like, I want to be on that show. And you're like, it's so weird, like to see the dynamic.
Yeah, the way that I always try to keep it in perspective, because it'll make you go insane otherwise. Artistically, if you want me to put my artist hat on as a serious performer, I would be like, okay, yeah, it's stupid that Stormy Daniels is getting to headline comedy shows. Like that doesn't make any sense. But as also someone who understands like the business side of this business, sure, there are plenty of comics who are obviously going to put on much better shows than Stormy Daniels. Yeah. Stormy Daniels has sold out almost every show she's done.
Yeah.
if you don't want someone like Stormy Daniels taking your spot, do something that makes it where you sell more tickets than her. Don't get mad at her or any YouTube person.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at them because they're trying to pay the bills or make some money. That's what we're all trying to do.
So
if you're pissed that they're taking comedy club spots, be more marketable than those people as a comic. That's
Go
it.
ban Trump. That's what you have
Yeah,
to do.
exactly.
Headline.
Exactly. And again, and that's not me trying to like say that the show is good. I don't know what the show is. It's probably terrible. It's probably not exciting. You know, Ron Jeremy was doing comedy for a while. Those shows were awful, but people wanted to see Ron Jeremy because it was interesting and weird. If you're pissed that Ron Jeremy is doing comedy shows, be more marketable than Ron Jeremy. If you can't sell more tickets than him, shut up. Because comedy clubs are in the business. Sure, they want to like build up comics, but they're also trying to keep the lights on. Running a comedy club's hard.
Well, that's the thing that I've never understood it because it's a little bit like that in the music business too. Like at least it was when I was in it. And there's like people will be like, "Oh, I can't believe this place has so and so," and then you're like the same thing. Like both my parents are business people; they own businesses, and so like I'm like looking at it from the business side. I'm like, well, the fact that they can sell out 2 nights in a row means that they can put on these 10 shows that make negative money. Like,
yep,
like
exactly.
So like that's why you're getting on stage is because this band that you think is garbage, which maybe like is selling out this place. So who cares?
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And like the other thing too that I always try to keep in mind, and this was hammered into me really early into my comedy career, is that like there's no such thing as like spots. It doesn't exist. Because like I'll put this in an example. Like let's say that you're a comic.
Yeah.
Just because I got America's Got Talent doesn't mean I took it from you. Because if America's Got Talent wanted you, they would put you on there as well. They would find a spot for you. Just because this comedy club is headlining Stormy Daniels doesn't mean they took my spot.
Yeah.
If I should be headlining that club, they will make room for me as well. No one's stealing your spot. You're competing against yourself. That's just how it works. So it's wasted. You can like, you know, we all have that human nature. As an artist, you're like, this is stupid. Why the hell is that person headlining that? But at the end of the day, it's wasted energy to think that they stole your spot because they didn't, because you weren't getting that whether Stormy Daniels was there or not.
Right.
So shut up and work harder.
Right. It's like if it's not Stormy Daniels, it'll be somebody else. It'll be
exactly. It'll be Bert Kreischer. It'll be whatever other comic that's more marketable than you.
Well, that's the crazy thing too. Is like as you were saying that, like that. It reminds me of because I do listen to a ton of podcasts. It's something like I think it was Joe Rogan who says it. He's like always talking about how like everyone's like such like famine mentality. There's like so much of that, but he's like there's like everyone's like, oh, I got to get my slice of the pie. He's like, or you can just make another fucking pie. Like,
yeah,
he's like, I don't understand. He's like, why do you limit yourself? There's so much you can just do. Like,
yeah, and you're gonna have a lot of failure. It's gonna take a lot for things to happen, but like you can figure something out. You know, like I didn't get AGT because someone else's career crumbled. Like there's not like a finite amount of people that get to do well at any certain time. You know, like it's just not how it works.
You're like, there's only room for 3 comics.
That's it.
Oh, that one died. You can now enter the room. It's like so, especially now because
he said something racist. It's my turn to shine. I get in there.
He went to rehab. That was a bad John Mulaney joke.
That's a little on the nose. Very research on that one.
Yeah, I actually just saw it like 5 minutes ago, but that's how behind the news I am. So shifting gears slightly, I'm a huge like 90s wrestling fan. I love wrestling from the 90s. I know you're a massive wrestling fan. That's where Cripple Threat came from in the first place.
Exactly.
Another podcast I was listening to, they said that you had I know you got to do some stuff with Chris Jericho for AGT. Someone said you had, on one of the podcasts you said you had Thanksgiving at Chris Jericho's house.
Yes, which is still
is that Canadian Thanksgiving?
What's that?
Is that Canadian Thanksgiving?
No, this was a good old fashioned U.S. smallpox blanket Thanksgiving. That's what we did. This was it was just like it kind of just worked out pretty randomly. He lives down in Tampa, which is where he lives now, and I happened to be doing shows in Tampa Thanksgiving weekend. So I had a show Wednesday, Thursday off, and then I was doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday to finish it off. We kind of became buddies after AGT. We just kind of stayed in touch a little bit, you know, following on Twitter and things like that, which was that if that was like the end of it, that would be awesome. Like as someone that's my favorite wrestler. When I was in, I've told the story a few times, but like one of the reasons I became an entertainer was because I was in Chicago the night that Chris Jericho debuted in WWF when
That
the
was
countdown
amazing.
clock. I was in the building. It just happened to be like random that I was there. We barely got to go to wrestling shows, but that was one that like it was a late birthday present or something. And I was in the building and like just being in that energy, I was like, yep, okay, I want to do something like this. This is what my life's going to be. So to kind of have that moment and then get to do the AGT stuff with Jericho was amazing. But then to have him like text me and be like, hey, you doing anything for Thanksgiving? And I was like, well, I'm just down here for the shows. We're not working that night. I might go up. I don't know. I'll figure something out. And he's like, well, my wife and I want you to come hang out with us then. And I was like, okay. So, yeah, it's just like nice because like they tell you never to meet your heroes or whatever. But like, I'm kind of glad I did. Like 38-year-old me is like, it's cool. He's a successful guy who's just like a good dude. I'm glad we get along and we shoot the shit. But like 16-year-old me is losing his mind. Like, I get to do the cruise. If the cruise can happen next October, I'm on the Jericho cruise.
Yeah.
I'm one of the performers for that, and I'm just a huge wrestling fan. Like I love wrestling, so kind of just getting to be around that world is like so fun for me as someone who like wanted to be a wrestler and it just wasn't ever going to happen. That's cool to get to vicariously live through that now.
Well, it's funny because like a lot of the wrestlers are into comedy. I know, I feel like that's
Love
a thing. It seems.
Yeah, because that's like the other crazy thing too is after AGT, because like obviously I see myself as just like, oh, I'm a big fan of wrestling, so I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't get starstruck in the same way that a lot of people might. But for me, it's like super cool that like Rob Van Dam is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Because like he's this like huge deal in wrestling, and most people don't care. If you don't like wrestling, you probably don't know who RVD is. But for me, it's like, oh, because he's succeeded in something I'll never succeed in. That's really cool.
Yeah.
The wrestlers kind of look the same way. I got a lot of messages, especially after like the Jericho thing, because he was like promoting that appearance happened. I got to talk to Raven for a while because he's a big fan of mine.
Yeah.
Hornswoggle and I talk every once in a while. Bill DeMott is a fan of mine. Kevin Thorne is a real estate guy in Indianapolis, and we're just like buddies. Like, so it's like people like again various levels of stardom in wrestling.
Yeah.
But like it's still cool. Like a lot of the AEW guys are fans of mine. Like it's just neat to be like, hey, we saw the thing with Jericho. You're really funny, man. Congratulations. And I'm like, oh shit, I've been a fan of you for 20 years. Like I remember you've been at WrestleMania and you're telling me that you like me. It's so surreal that kind of happens that way.
It's super awesome. I was like, I gotta ask about. I mean, that's crazy. I was like, Thanksgiving at Jericho's house has to be like a surreal experience. Like,
yeah, I mean, and it wasn't like wild. It wasn't like a rock star Thanksgiving. Yeah. I'm like talking to his father-in-law. We're just like, I think it was his father-in-law used to like work in Kokomo, Indiana. And I was like, oh, I've done a few shitty shows in Kokomo, Indiana. Small world, like it was like this it was very cool to just like be there and just be accepted and just like get to hang out, and like that wasn't like a big deal. It was just very cool.
That's so cool.
Is Jericho somebody you think that could actually do comedy? Because everything he's ever said on camera is hilarious.
I do think so. It's one of those things he would need seasoning because it's not exactly the same. Doing a show in a comedy club is not telling a funny promo. The audiences have different expectations.
Yeah.
For what it's going to be. Because that was the thing too. For a little while, how I met RVD was he was doing stand-up for a little while after he first left WWE, like in 2007. Mm-hmm. I kind of helped. I was a writer on a pilot that he was a part of that was like comedy based, and he was doing some stand-up sets, and they were funny if you already knew the full backstory of RVD.
Gotcha.
If you had a very intimate knowledge of like his career in wrestling, you would think it's funny. If you had no idea who he was ahead of time, it was not good. Just because there was just too much information you had to know ahead of time. And I think like that's usually the problem that a lot of the wrestlers have. Is just that like they're coming from their world, but like my mom knows who Chris Jericho is because I did the thing on AGT with Chris Jericho. Yeah. And he was on Dancing with the Stars. Like that's how my mom knows Chris Jericho. So if he's telling some like specific jokes about what it was like working with William Regal at WrestleMania 18, my mom's not going to have any context for that whatsoever. But I do think like he's someone who works hard. Like if he really wanted to just do stand up, he'd figure it out. He would learn.
He does what? Because he already performs as with Fozzy. I mean,
yeah. Like basically like how I think it would go. He would start to do stand up. He would fail until he figured it out. He would be like, okay, this didn't work. But he's like, his brain just works in a way that he's like, okay, well, this sucked. How do I make it better? And he would figure it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, back to that Rosemont entrance. That had to be like the best debut ever, right?
It's up there. It's definitely one of the coolest. I still like anytime I see the clip of it or like watch it like on WWE Network or something like that, I still get goosebumps. I can remember being there. Like I just kind of remember that feeling. It was. I had to go back and watch a VHS of the actual debut because you couldn't hear the promo during that.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I was going to say that does kind of sort of lead us into what we prefaced you on. We do a draft on the show.
Okay.
And I believe Jems talked to you about it being a wrestling draft.
Kind of in the world of wrestling, yes.
Okay, so what we do is we do 5 rounds, 3 pick. Obviously, there's 3 of us, so we do a snake draft.
Okay.
We allow our guests to pick their spot. So if you pick first, then you get the 6th pick. If you pick second, you get the 5th pick. Pick third, you get the first draft. And then we each take whatever the specific is. So in this case, we're going to draft wrestlers and make I guess we never typically go like too in depth. It's more so like we'll just do wrestlers. I thought about it as we were talking. I was like, we should make a Survivor Series team, but yeah, just like your roster.
Yeah,
your roster guys that you would want. So we'll let you pick which spot you want to draft out of.
I want to go third. I want that 3 and 4 pick. I like that boom boom.
You're the first person to take third.
Everybody else is taking second.
Everyone else is taking second for some reason.
Yeah. Well, you never want to go first because like you get the the guy, but then every time I've done a fantasy football draft where I'm first, I'm like, okay, I'll see you at pick 25 or whatever the hell.
Yeah, right. I'll be back in 2 hours to pick my next pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat an entire turkey dinner that I'm gonna prepare from scratch first while I wait for you assholes to overanalyze every pick.
Right. So you get the 3 pick. Jems, I believe I picked last out of us, so I will give you the option to pick first or second this time.
I'll take first this time.
All right, I'll be the second pick then.
I'm gonna lead off with Stone Cold. He's my favorite of all time.
Stone Cold.
Solid. Can't go wrong there. Can't go wrong there. The main star of the hottest period in wrestling history. That's hard to argue against.
Yeah, it's pretty solid number 1, I would think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that same vein, because I'll preface this with every wrestler I like will never be picked if we did like 72 rounds of this thing. I always liked that guy that was not.
My first favorite wrestler was Tatanka.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like I'm definitely a mid card guy. Like those are the guys that I always really got strongly behind. Hardcore Holly is one of my favorite wrestlers of the Attitude Era. Everyone else is like all in Austin, and I'm like, I want to see what Hardcore Holly's up to.
me and my brother were huge Rockers fans, and I was firmly Team Marty Jannetty. He was firmly Team Shawn Michaels. Yep. I clearly picked wrong.
Yes, but history did not work out for you on that. But
no. He sends me that clip like once a week, probably, like of Marty Jannetty just getting kicked through the barbershop. It's great. So I'm gonna go with a huge wrestler. I will take Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Okay.
My second.
That's who I would have taken with the 3rd pick if you let that go. So I would say for my first pick, then you just mentioned him. It would be Shawn Michaels. I think he's the best in-ring performer. probably of all time. And I'm glad that he kind of became less of a douche after he kind of came back later. Some of the stories of like that, like mid '90s Shawn Michaels, he was a nightmare as a human. So I would put that at 3, and then for the 4th pick on the snake, I would probably say I'm gonna go Bret Hart. I think because for me, like I was never like the biggest Bret Hart fan in the world when I was growing up during that time, but like he's someone that like again he's sort of a douche in a different way, but he was just so believable. He was just one of those guys like in a time where like WWF was like clowns and plumbers and garbage men and like
literally like there were clowns.
Yeah, like literal. He was just such a believable, like his promos were never flashy, but like you believed what he said. Like this was important to him. I just thought he was super solid. I've grown to appreciate him so much more as an adult.
Well, and just the legacy that family has left. I mean, I think Jericho is part of that, isn't he? Jericho
indirectly, he did train at the dungeon, but yeah, he's a part of that.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, that and Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart had some epic matches too.
Yep,
some epic ones. Man, shoot. So I mean, man, it's so hard because I was such a big WWE or WWF and WCW fan. Like I watched both. I don't know if you did during the whole crazy. I was on both sides.
I was such a big wrestling fan. I would watch terrible. Like there was a public access indie in Northwest Indiana that I would watch. Just I couldn't get enough of wrestling, no matter what it was.
Hell yeah, I can't beat that. So I'm gonna go. I think of him as WCW. I think some people think of him as WWE, but I'm gonna take Ric Flair. I'm gonna take the Nature Boy.
Yeah, he's NWA, WCW. I think he did have a long run in WWE, but it was at the end of his career. Yeah. Like he had already done his thing. So yeah, that can't go wrong there.
No.
So
Jems, you ready for your 2 picks?
Yeah, growing up, I used to have these VHSs from before I was born, and it was just old like pay-per-views, like WrestleMania 1 and like old Survivor Series and Royal Rumbles. And my favorite then, and I mean he's one of the most favorite wrestlers of a lot of people of all time, was Hulk Hogan. And then like even when he went to WCW and was Hollywood and was an asshole, like that was great. It's fantastic theater before NWO blew up into like 87 people. When it was just those 3, it was great.
Yeah. There's about a like, and again, hindsight's 2020 because clearly even when there was 87 people in NWO, WCW was still killing it. Yeah. But as far as like actually looking back, there's about a 5 to 6 month period where that was like so cool. Yeah. Like not knowing why Hall and Nash were there, not knowing who the third guy was, and then it's Hulk Hogan, the ultra baby face, who's suddenly a heel for the first, he had been heel before, but no one knows about 1980 in WWF. But yeah, it was like there's like 6 months there where it was just like it was must see, and then it just got silly. But
well, it was cool because it was like the first time you were like, actually, surprisingly, I lived in Virginia Beach, so like literally like when they were both in town, that was when like I think Hunter and like Shawn.
Oh yeah, that was the tank. That
was in my town. I was like, holy shit! That was wild. I mean, and that was like kind of cross. Like you're like, wait, they're 2 different things. Like this might be real. Like you're like got this like weird like
you're
like holy shit.
It was a cool time for sure.
Loved it. Great era.
And then I will roll it back with he played many people, and he also got thrown off of a Hell in a Cell. And just take Mick Foley in general.
Okay.
Like I could just, I guess we could split him up into 3, but I'm hogging all 3.
I think you're allowed because like I mean the characters were different, but they were all him. Like it was part like the story was his mind was so messed up that he was 3 people. So Mick Foley counts.
I was looking up some stuff on him today. I know I think he was the first hardcore champion, but he only won it once.
Yeah, he was gifted it.
Right.
It was Vince gave it to him as a present, basically.
And then, did he only win it once? Like that just blew my mind that he only held that title when he was gifted to him, and that was it.
Yeah. But because by the time where it became the 24/7 thing, where it became more of a comedy thing,
he
had already, that's when he had moved on to, WWF title, and
yeah, he was like
kind
the
of
guy.
Yeah, he was a part of that, and then like his retirement and like all that. He was just on different stuff at the time then.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna. I thought you were gonna take my pick there, Jems. When you said Hell in a Cell, I'm taking Undertaker.
Well, that's 2 picks of mine you've taken now, right? Before that's twice now.
You should have took the 2 pick, Ryan.
I know, but yeah, it's fine. Undertaker is easily the best character I think of all time.
Yeah.
Because on paper it's stupid. Yeah. He's literally a wrestling zombie. That should not be a thing that's like cool. Like that's the stupidest thing ever. If you try to explain that to someone who's not a wrestling fan, that's the dumbest thing ever. But it just works in that world.
He made it out of the hokey era, like where everybody was playing a character, and he just made it work for 30 years, 40 years.
Legitimately, when I was like 8 years old, we somehow got ringside seats at like this local shows, like the non-televised shit, and like dude, he came down and he he'd walk around the ring and he looked at me in the fucking face, and I was like, I'm about to die. Like I legit thought I was gonna die. Like I was like, that dude's for real, not real. Like I don't know. Like
awesome. I'm on board with that.
Scared the shit out of me.
Well, my next one, I got to give a little love to my boy. He's my favorite wrestler of all time, and it's got to be Chris Jericho. Just like for me, just to have like the body of work, like the dude's been in wrestling for they did like a 30th anniversary of Chris Jericho's career recently, and he's still one of the top dudes on the planet. Like it's not like a weird he's an old legend, so you have to give him this. Like he's reinvented himself, and he's still having great matches, and just the amount of different characters and different things he's done over the years. I think he's just so versatile, and so I would go Jericho with my next pick.
Well, he's an interesting one too, because he was WCW, he was WWF. He also did New Japan Wrestling, right?
Yep.
What's that? And had a great storyline over there, and and anytime you can cross that many boundaries and be in different areas and still be able to tell the story, and you got to be one of the greats. I mean,
besides being Y2J, but has he only ever been Chris Jericho? Has he been able to keep his name throughout all of these different?
Yeah. As far as anything, since he's become prevalent, he has other characters from back in the day. He was Super Liger and the Lionheart with a masked wrestler in Mexico. So he's had other little things, but he's been Chris Jericho from.
Is that just
from day
how
one?
That's wild though, because Dean Ambrose just switched from WWE to, and he's whatever he is now in AEW.
John Moxley.
But how was he able to keep his name? Do you know? Is that his actual real name?
No, it's not his real name. His real name's Chris Irvine. He's his dad was Ted Irvine, who was a NHL player for years. Essentially, he kind of got lucky in that he came in at a time before WWE would rebrand people so that they could own the names. That's basically why they did it. So since he was Chris Jericho for years, and he was Chris Jericho when he came there, he gets to keep it. John Moxley was John Moxley before. When he came to WWE, they rebranded him as Dean Ambrose, so they own that. And now when he leaves, that's why he can't be Dean Ambrose. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's all that intellectual property, and we created the character. Not really though, but okay.
But it's one of those things though. I know WWE gets a lot of shit for certain things, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
That just makes good business sense. You don't randomly give. It's just how it is. You can market different merch and things like that even after people are gone. Yeah. So it's
booking Stormy Daniels at a comedy club.
Exactly. And then my next pick, I'm gonna go Macho Man.
You took one of my picks. That was gonna be my pick.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you got to go Randy Savage. He was so ahead of his time. I think he kind of did almost Attitude Era stuff in the mid '80s. As far as just he seemed legitimately unhinged, and at a time, and some of the stuff that you would think they would do, bashing Ricky Steamboat's throat with the ring bell before WrestleMania 3, just stuff at that time when it was Hulk Hogan as more of a cartoon hero, superhero, and then you'd have people like that doing like really dastardly things. Like he was just so ahead of his time, I think.
He was also like a minor league baseball player too, wasn't he?
Yeah. It was with the Cardinals organization, I think, and I think he just had like injuries that made him kind of fall out of that. But he was a really good baseball player, apparently.
Also a rapper.
Yes, that rap album I unironically love. It's so weird. Yeah, there is there is no irony. Like, I know realistically it's not a good rap album, but I unironically love it. It's so weird doing like diss tracks on Hulk Hogan and like rap ballads about Mr. Perfect and like his death. It's so just weird and over the top.
Oh, that's actually funny that you just said that. I'm picking Mr. Perfect as my fourth pick.
Oh, okay.
Mostly because I just remember like the 6 months of like build up of like all the random shit they would just have him do, like hitting a hole in one, and like they just had it. They built it up so much that it was like so perfect, and it was my favorite move to do on my brother at the perfect plex. I would do one of the best moves to do. Can't
absolutely, yeah. I'm on board with Mr. Perfect.
I wish he would have been a little bigger, to be honest with you, but
yeah, he was just someone. He was just a little ahead of his time for like different reasons.
Yeah,
you know, like had he not had the injuries and stuff that he did in the '90s, he would have been like in that, like, especially after the steroid scandal and all that. He would have been in that same place with like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels when they were focusing on the smaller guys during all that.
There was somebody. I'm so mad that I forgot because I found it really interesting. I'll remember it after we're off. But like, I was listening to a wrestling podcast, and it was between Kurt Hennig and there was somebody else that became another notable act, but it wasn't as big. But it was between those two.
Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor.
Yeah.
With the chicken or the rooster or whatever he was.
Yeah, Red Rooster.
And I think Terry Taylor turned down Mr. Perfect, if I recall the story correct, because he thought the Red Rooster was going to be bigger.
Yeah, because it was like cartoony time.
Yeah,
and also like it's one of those things that, like, in hindsight, like naming someone Mr. Perfect, whose whole gimmick is he never messes up.
Yeah,
like you have to have the right person to do that. It just would have taken Perfect missing his gum one time that he slapped away, or like dropping the towel when he threw it over his back or whatever, to be like, nope, this is dumb. Nope, this doesn't work.
Right? Was it him and Bret Hart had like a 60-minute match at WrestleMania, didn't they? Was it him, or was that Shawn Michaels?
That was Shawn Michaels. That was Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart.
I was gonna say, because I remember Mr. Perfect having like a crazy match that was like one of my favorite against one of those guys, and I couldn't remember.
He had one against Bret Hart at the '91 SummerSlam, which I think is probably the one you're thinking.
Yeah. No, it was one of my favorite matches. I was like, holy shit! Like, that's why part of the reason why I loved it. I was like, oh my god, like, it was awesome.
Ryan, your wrestling recall is phenomenal.
Dude, this is what happens when women don't want to date you in high school and college. You have plenty of time to learn this stuff. It's just like it's. I get passionate about this stuff. I'm a big history when it comes to, like, especially sports. I'm a big stats guy. I love baseball because there's just so many like the history books are so deep. I'm that way with pro wrestling. I love this kind of stuff. It makes me happy.
That's awesome.
So for my last two picks, I'm going to take half of my favorite tag teams. So my two favorite tag teams were Attitude Era. The first one was the New Age Outlaws, and of the two, I like the Road Dogg better.
Okay.
I wasn't like he was a great wrestler or anything, but he was awesome on the microphone, and he said ass all the time when he was introducing Billy Gunn. So 10-year-old me probably thought that was awesome. So I really like the Road Dogg, and I think he like helps write storylines now, or he's a producer.
He's a producer and stuff now. Yeah, I think he still works there.
That's hilarious.
And then the other tag team I really liked from that time was the Hardy Boys, because they didn't care; they just flew everywhere. And I preferred Jeff, so Jeff was there.
Yeah.
So I'll take Jeff with my last pick, Jeff Hardy.
Okay. All right.
So to recap, I like to recap as we go down the last row. You have Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Mick Foley, Road Dogg Jesse James, and Jeff Hardy.
Yes.
So
Got some diversity there. Got some different types of characters there. I can get on that. I can get on
I
board
go a
with
little diverse with my draft sometimes. We had a pizza
Yeah.
draft where I took macaroni and cheese as a topping. So
that. All right, I like that. Okay.
yeah, it got weird.
I'm an old trailer park kid from the Midwest. I can get down on some mac and cheese. All right.
Seafood.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was it your propensity to go to CC's, because that's what Jems claimed.
Yeah, I had a roommate of mine when I lived in Evansville for about a year. He worked at CC's. It was the best time of my life. He would just bring home Frankenstein style pizzas. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Oh shit, dude! You should that nowadays could make you $1 zillion on YouTube. You could have just made a show of you eating that food,
Eating just random stuff. Yeah, but I eat it off my belly like an otter because that's the way I do it.
Oh shit! I'm trying to figure out who I want for my 5th pick. There's so many wrestlers that are going through my head. Shit! I'm gonna go my favorite all-time wrestler. I'm going Brian Pillman.
Okay.
Love Brian Pillman.
All right. Yeah. Another guy who just like his wasn't the same type of tragedy. His was just like he just had health issues and it got him at the wrong time. Like he would have been huge.
Yeah.
Like and again, like it's obviously I'm sure his family's more upset that they lost their family member, but like thinking strictly pro wrestling wise, like man, during that Attitude Era, like he would have been huge during that.
Yeah, I was literally watching something the other, or I think I was going through some wrestling. Maybe it was when I was doing research for this draft. I was like going through it, and I was like, somebody had like a meme. It was like some memes that was like, they said this went too far in like the new WWE. They're like, Brian Pillman had a gun.
Yeah, he literally pulled a gun and may have murdered Steve Austin as the camera went out. Like they didn't know at the time.
You're like, holy shit. Yeah.
So recap yours, please.
My recap, I have The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Ric Flair, Undertaker, Kurt Hennig, and Brian Pillman.
Okay, all right.
Well, Kurt Hennig was Mr. Perfect. I don't know why I keep saying Kurt Hennig, but
sure, you're right either way.
Yeah.
Well, my 5th, I'm actually surprised he made it this long. And I almost took him last time because I was scared that he was going to be gone. But I'm going Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was like he was like such just like for me, he was like the perfect mix of like everything that I enjoy in wrestling. Like just a really good in-ring guy, a strong promo. He could do comedy really well as well. Like like legit funny wrestling comedy. Like wrestling comedy is usually bad. It's just not good. He was legitimately funny. And you just wanted to see him get his ass beat, which is just, it's commendable. That's hard to do.
Have you met him?
I have not met Kurt Angle.
He's on that cruise though, isn't he? Isn't he like?
I think so. That's why I'm hoping this cruise happens. I'm excited.
I was looking at all the people on there. I was like, this looks awesome.
Yeah, I would. I'm gonna have to keep my shit together during that because it's weird. Like again, I don't fanboy very often, but like it's cool to get to meet people like that, like in something that had such a big impact on like my childhood and like my formative years. So I hope I get to meet him. I'd be very excited about that.
That would.
But if he heckles me, I'm throwing him out. I will throw him overboard. I promise you.
So I'll recap yours real quick. So Ryan has Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Chris Jericho, Macho Man, and Kurt Angle. I believe you are the only one that has your entire roster was at one point the WWE champion.
That is correct. Yeah, I went work rate. I went very much. I went with very much. We're putting on a lot of 5-star matches in an old Ryan Wrestling Federation.
Right? You're gonna have a hard time figuring out who the guy is. So you're gonna be like
exactly. I'm gonna be like early Ring of Honor, where everyone's just a great wrestler, which means no one's a great wrestler.
It was that. So since you have such a deep knowledge, and since I was like I struggled, what do you have like 3 honorable mentions that you're like, man, like I really wanted them in my top 5, but I
just wrote those down.
Yeah. At this point, I would probably start maybe rounding out the roster a little bit with some more of the actual mid-card guys. Not that it'd be mid-card, but like Like, I think John Cena needs to be somewhere in there. I think John Cena gets so much more shit than he deserves.
Yeah. I thought about taking him. I thought about it.
I'd put him up there. For me, one of the big ones, someone I've just had like a weird just love for so long is the Hurricane, old Shane Helms.
Yeah.
I actually have a Hurricane tattoo on my calf.
Really?
Like, that's how much of a fan I was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Back?
Was it? Yeah. It sucked at the time because I got the tattoo, and then like 3 months later, he dropped the gimmick. I didn't know it was going to come back at some point. I didn't realize it was going to be part, but I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" So I'm actually hoping to get to meet him. My buddy Johnny LaQuasto, who's on the podcast with me, he's good friends with Shane Helms. So I'm hoping to be able to one day just like show him. What's that?
He does some like announcing for wrestling, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was. It's unfortunate. He was one of the COVID releases for WWE this year. He was an announcer in NXT. So hopefully, like, they liked him. So hopefully, whenever because the big problem with some of those guys where they're not coming back yet, a lot of what his job was to like be at live events. So he'd be like the announcer and like the MC for the NXT house shows, and obviously those just don't exist right now. So but yeah, like Johnny and I talk wrestling all the time. That's a big part of how our friendship started. Was just we were both wrestling nerds and just nerds in general. So
well, you guys seem like the types of nerds that we would hang out with. So you guys,
exactly.
So speaking of NXT, and you were on Pat's show, what have you thought of Pat's 2 matches?
You know what? I like Pat. Pat and I are friends. I will admit, when he started getting involved more with stuff like that, I had very low expectations. I didn't realize how serious he was taking it. I think at the time, I guess, was part of. Well, and it's not even that. Like, I know he loves wrestling, so I don't think he was like thinking it's a joke. But he has so many irons and so many fires. Like, that dude is just involved in so many things that I didn't know what kind of like, effort he could put into it legitimately. I have been so pleasantly surprised and impressed with what he's done. Because I was at the house show, the NXT house show in Indianapolis, where they kind of first were starting the angle, like maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the one where Bobby Fish tore his ACL, which sucked because I'm friends with Bobby Fish. It's weird watching one of your friends in the best part of his career have a serious injury. So that sucked. So like at that point, like with what they were doing with the angle, I was like, okay, this is just they found a local celebrity and they're doing a thing and it's whatever. With kind of how it's worked, like, dude, he went all out like in War Games during that. Like I was very impressed, and not just because he did it, but because like it was actually good. Like it shows kind of like the state of where WWE as a whole is right now, where they kind of overscript people's promos.
Mm-hmm.
He is the best interview in WWE because they're just letting him be Pat. Like, they're just letting him be himself. Like, to the fact that he's like, he just gets it. He's just so good at that. I've been really impressed with it.
Yeah. By the way, while you were saying that, I was totally just realized that not a single one of us took Triple H in our draft.
That's when I was writing down honorable mentions. He was the first one I wrote down. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. And Triple H is one of those guys that I would have. He just never again. I think sometimes rightfully he gets a lot of shit. I think a lot of it's overblown because he was never the guy, but he's clearly impressed. Like I like Triple H. He just wouldn't be, if I only get 5, he's not someone I would take.
Yeah, no, for sure.
My wife was sitting down here and she texted me and she wanted me to take Sting because that was her favorite. So
I forgot Sting too.
Yeah. Sting's a handsome boy, especially that '90s bleach blonde Sting.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Looking boy right there. That's
the thing. I was like, man, that's the Sting I would take. I would take this. I would take bleach blonde Sting.
Yep. I liked Pro Sting. I like it was one of the cooler parts of WCW at the time. I would definitely take bleach blonde. I think it's just of all the Sting, when I think Sting, that's the Sting I think of. Yeah. In my head, I don't think Pro Sting nearly as much.
But it was. I mean, that's another career, underrated career too. I think.
Yep.
He just came back with AEW or something, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah, he's going to be, I guess, a weekly character, and they might have him wrestle here and there, which is, I think, is cool. Like, I mean, hopefully he's safe. Like, he had a pretty bad neck injury,
right?
when he wrestled with Seth Rollins. So obviously, like for me, one of the weird things that's happened with wrestling now that I've become friends with more of these guys is I watch it a little bit different. Like before I'd be like, I hope this match is awesome. Now I'm like texting people like, please don't die. I like you as a person.
You're like, you're like Jeff Hardy better jump off something that's 60 feet tall this week. And you're like,
I had that bloodlust. I was like, man, I hope they just like bleed all over each other. I hope it's. Now I'm like, please, I know your wife. Please take care of yourself. Like, what are you doing?
You have children.
Exactly. It's a little different perspective. I still enjoy it, but it's a different perspective now.
By the way, I went down one of those weird rabbit holes, like one of those weird, like those YouTube videos where it was like 9 times that somebody broke character, and like one of them was literally why the fuck can't I think of his name? He's like literally like one of my favorite wrestlers currently, Randy Orton.
Okay.
Randy Orton like was in a match and like I think like I forgot who it was. Someone got like hurt pretty bad in the ring, or like that was like kind of like real, and it was like, oh shit, like, and like, but like he was like okay, but like Randy Orton, like they show him like hopping off, and like he goes over to like the dude's kid's son, and he's like he's okay, like yeah, and you're like holy shit, you're like it's so weird to see that kind of thing, but you're like
yeah, it's nice like when you hear things like that, especially
yeah,
cool,
it's
man.
Fun. Yeah, well, Ryan, I think that's the end of the podcast. We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I feel good about this. I will not have you guys take this down. No, I was a little worried early. I was like, we're probably gonna have to cut all this and just
all of it.
I'm not gonna really, but like you guys can put this up. I'm happy with it. So
like you get minutes 2 to 4. That's all you got. Well, open invite to come back. I know we super appreciate it. We're giant fans. We love stand up. We love. I love the podcast. Now that I realize you have a podcast, if you want to plug that real quick, it's absolutely hilarious.
Yep. So the podcast is called The Cafeteria. Yes, I do it with my buddy Johnny LaQuasto, formerly of the WWE. My buddy Brent Terhune, who is the redneck y'all love to hate. If you've seen those viral videos, just a fun little podcast. You can find us anywhere that there's that you listen to podcasts, called The Cafeteria. Also, my own personal social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's at CrippleThreat8. So give me a follow on there. I always update when I'm doing shows and that type of thing. So it's a good time. And as you guys can attest, I will respond eventually. I did not see that in my filtered messages for a while, but I will respond eventually.
That was awesome. I was at work and it's like message from Ryan Niemiller. I was like, oh shit, I didn't think like I was like oh, he's not gonna respond, and then holy crap.
Yeah. I do my best to respond to what I can on there. Sometimes like the way that Instagram and stuff filters, you don't see it right away. But
right.
But yeah, we made it happen.
Yeah, and we can't thank you enough.
For sure, yeah, we can't thank you enough. We're huge fans, and if you ever get close, once everything kind of opens up, you'll definitely see me at your show for sure.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll do this again sometime. Let's reconvene. Hopefully, the world hasn't ended by like the middle of next year, but
right.
let's reconvene, and we can do another the wrestler draft. We can fill out our
watch along with like WrestleMania 13 or something.
Yeah, perfect. I'm on board with that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate it, man.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.